Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the McAuley Tucker Show. I'm your host McAuley Tucker, and today we've got a very special guest, Ray. Ray is an actor who's played the Axeman in Resident Evil series, and he also worked in Pixels and in Suicide Squad. He is a Nigerian Canadian boxer and has held the Canadian Heavyweight Championship status for many years. I think you'll really enjoy this episode, and you guys have a good one. And I wanted to kind of ask you about heavyweight boxing. Why this? Why did this interest you? Was this something that you were interested in at a younger age, or was it something that you got interested in when you were older?
Actually, my chronological line actually goes in the way of I've been an athlete since I was 5 years of age. I started off doing track and field, then went into volleyball, badminton, basketball. Boxing was a sport I took on actually rather late by comparison to everybody else, all my peers. But yeah, I was like 22 years old when I stepped into the first boxing gym. But I'd already been in film since I was 18. Boxing was taken up because I didn't qualify for the Olympics in '92. So I had a hissy fit. I said, I'm leaving track and this, that, and the next thing. Come November of '92, it was the first time in, as long as I can remember, that I didn't have an athletic goal to chase. And I was a little bit lost. So my roommate at the time said, why don't you come try some boxing with me? And I said, sure. I walked into the gym and I met the coach, and pretty much on site, he said, how'd you like to compete? I said, sure. And the rest has been history.
That's really beautiful to hear. You mentioned a lot about when you were younger, you were involved in different types of sports. I heard you mention track and field and, volleyball. And one thing I didn't know, you said you started film at 18. What exactly did that look like? Did this involve commercials? I don't know if you could explain that to me a bit more.
I was in high school, and a girlfriend of mine, she made the suggestion that my friend and I should get into acting. She thought that we'd do really well. She was in acting. She was a model actually. And so she made the suggestion and hooked us up with a background casting agent. So we're just doing background. And I didn't take it seriously. It was just like fun. We got to see each other, see yourself on television. And it was like, okay, that's cool. But it was background. Unbeknownst to me, there were multitudes of times where I could have been upgraded. I should have been upgraded to an actual actor role. But one, my naivete and just young. Yeah, I guess I was just naive. I wasn't even thinking from the business standpoint. I was just having fun. So what ends up happening is, like, I remember a show where I came on. It was called Men's, and the storyline was these two guys. They were high school superstars, college superstars, and then the war broke out. The first Gulf War broke out, so they went into the army, and then they came back from war, and they tried to make the basketball team, but all of a sudden, all the ball players were a lot bigger now. All the kids were so much taller. So I was one of three guys. This is when I met Ving Rhames for the first time. And we were playing, and the scene was we passed the ball, the three of us passed the ball between the three of us, and then one of us goes off, dunks the ball, and then the ref blows a whistle, 15, 20 guys line up on the baseline, and then he calls out the roster for the team. Now they had given each of like a selection of us names. My name was Wolf. Okay. By the fact that I had gotten a name, that means that I would get credits. And if I got credits, I was an actor. Did not know that, but that's one. Two, they called me. So when they called me, everyone starts yelling, Wolf, 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 whatever. And I walk up, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to run up to the coach, grab your jersey, and keep walking. When I grabbed the jersey, he held on, which I thought was awkward, and he just looked at me and goes, "You even play like an animal." I go, "Thanks, coach." Again, that made me an actor. No idea. Stayed as background. I was just again having fun. I didn't actually get my full ACTRA membership until I was 27 years old, and I was working on a movie called Phantom Punch. Oh, sorry, no, the Rocky Marciano story. The Rocky Marciano story. And that's when I realized how amazing being in the union could be, and how working in this field is, how lucrative it can be. And again, it's just like all you're doing is playing make-believe as an adult and making a living doing it. It's rather sweet.
I thought it was interesting how you mentioned you started out as a background actor and how, it slowly but surely progressed to maybe a bigger role in a film. And I believe you were doing some acting work as well as you were doing your boxing. You were balancing both at the same time. Kind of going back to the subject of your friend connecting you to, the boxer, what happened after that? Did it take a while for you to actually get a name for yourself and actually get into some games, or was it very quick?
Oh, boxing. It was just due process. My scenario went as such. I started training, really fell in love with it, but like 3 months later, I ended up having a really bad break. Like I broke my leg playing basketball, and then I was out for 18 months, and then I came back, and I had my first fight the day before my 25th birthday, and I ended up losing the fight. And it was traumatic for me, but I wasn't hurt or anything. I just ran out of gas. I beat the guy up. I just ran out of gas. I did not know any better. I ended up a couple months after that, I went into a tournament it was the novice tournament, novice being under 5 fights tournament. And then I won that tournament. I had 3 fights. I won that tournament. And then I wanted to go to the Olympics. I had no business going to the Olympics. I had no ability, but I wanted to go. So I trained how I thought I needed to train. And I went on to what is known as the open class provincials. And the open class provincials, it's to be open class, you have to have over 10 fights. I had 4. I had to have a petition to allow me to compete in the open class because I was so green. In doing so, if I had known what my first opponent's record was, I don't know if I would have gotten in the ring. He was deceiving. He wasn't tall. He had made a huge blunder. He wanted to come in and fight in the weight class called heavyweight, which is in the amateurs at the time. It was under 201, but instead he came in at 211. So then he was in my weight class, which was the super heavyweight. Now he wasn't a big guy, but apparently he could punch. And I just looked at him like he was just soft and it was going to be short work. and I made it short work. I stopped him. I stopped him in the first round by I I hit him, and he went flying through the second and third ropes onto the computer desk. Yeah, and at the time, technically, I knew nothing. It was the luckiest punch I've ever had. I knew nothing. I can't stress that point enough. And yeah, I end up hyperextending both my elbows in well, it was less than 2 minutes of competition. In less than 2 minutes of competition, I ended up hyperextending both my elbows, and but I got the knockout and went on to the what's it called. The next day, I was going up against a guy who we are now friends, but this guy was something. He was the former. He had gone to the Commonwealth Championships. He had been a national champion at that time 3 times. He had been a national champion. He has international experience. He had over 130 fights. This was my 6th fight. Yeah, it didn't go well for me. I ended up losing that by second round, and I found out later about all his stats. Then that first guy, his stats, he was on a 37 fight win streak. 37 fights, 37 knockouts. And then he met me. And yeah. So yeah, Kevin Anderson was his name.
I think it's very interesting to hear about just your experience, and you mentioned the Olympics, and I think it's really fascinating that you were wanting to try out and at least take that risk, because not too many people would want to go right into that, but I still think it's interesting that it shows a lot about your character. You're wanting to go right into the Olympics. And it's really unfortunate that really didn't work out for you. One thing I wanted to hear more about, which I don't really know a lot about, is the training that is necessary for boxing. And you mentioned fighting the next day. So from my understanding, some games can go back to back. And how do you prepare for this? Because you are doing these and you're really tired. How do you rest? How do you practice?
In the amateurs, it's a completely different beast, especially back in those days. It was a completely different beast than it is in the professionals. In the amateur realm, when you go into a tournament, you could be some like international tournaments, which are huge. You may be fighting 5 days in a row, and you're fighting a different opponent. So in the preparation of an athlete, now one of my things I do for work is I'm an actual boxing coach, and in prepping my athletes for international or for tournaments, you must teach them, you must expose them to a multitude of different styles, because you might be fighting a short linebacker, like aggressive guy, or you might be fighting a tall, lanky, basketball-ish, evasive guy. It's 2 different styles that you'd have to go up against, and it's 2 different ways to train. The common denominator across the board is your conditioning. You have to make sure that you have the cardio to last. It's paramount. It's often overlooked. I overlooked it. I relied a whole lot on strength and athleticism. And the most important thing is boxing IQ. And that only comes with years and rounds and rounds and years of training.
And did you have to go through all those years and years and years of training as well?
I was an amateur for 9 years. I turned pro in 2004 after I qualified to be Canada's representative at the Olympic trials. And then I was deemed, after I won nationals, that I was 54 days too old to compete in boxing, which was absurd. And it's still, to this day, I still think it's nonsense. The way it was written, mind you, it's just discriminatory anyways, first and foremost. But the way it was written, it was like all athletes must be 17-34. Now, the way I read that was, you're 34, you're able to compete 34 until you're 35. But apparently, it reads, on your 34th birthday, you may compete. The next day, you're 34 and 1 day, and you're 1 day too old. I was 54 days too old to compete in the 2004 Olympic Games, which drove me insane.
That's really too bad that didn't work out for you.
Oh yeah, I'm still a little bitter. 18 years later.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is, in your experiences, wasn't it 3-time champion? I believe I have that correct. Or
you do that? I'm the 3-time Canadian professional champion, heavyweight champion. Yeah.
What's been the hardest fight for you? If you could pick one, which one was the hardest, and how were you able to overcome the fight?
My most talented opponent would have to be a guy by the name of Ty Fields, 6'9" southpaw. I didn't win the fight. He stopped me in 3 rounds. It was the second time I'd actually fought somebody taller than me, and I was ill prepared, and I didn't have the skill set at the time to overcome him. I would love to dance with him today, but he's long retired. There's a couple of guys, notable guys I fought. David Cadieux was another notable fighter, exceptionally athletic. Relatively, I think I'm maybe a little bit taller than him, but we're like the same height. And he just weathered the storm, and he got the win the first time. And then the second time, I did not give him that opportunity. And I beat him for the Canadian title the first time. Then there's Demetrius, the next big thing king. That's his name. The next big thing king. Demetrius King. I call him D-Train. The guy's 5'11". I think he fought at 284 pounds. He looks like like a linebacker. And we fought twice. The first time, I sustained arguably my worst knockout, that I got knocked out. And then in a rematch, I put it on him. And yeah, we're friends today. We weren't friends at the time.
Wow. Listening to you tell these stories, it's crazy. Like, what's one valuable lesson that you've learned from all the fights you've done that you've applied to your life just in general? Not even a lesson that can be applied just to boxing, but just in your life after that as well.
Never judge a book by its cover. The sport of boxing has absolutely, positively, unequivocally nothing to do with the way you look. Has everything to do with what's going on in your gray matter. If you have a strategy, if you have ability, if you understand the sport, you won the fight. Right now, you have these guys who have all these pretty big muscles and stuff like that. I teach, one of the gyms I teach at is predominantly a bodybuilding gym, and my fighters would victimize almost any one of these guys who are huge. But Yeah, never judge a book by its cover.
That is very, very important, and I feel like that will benefit a lot of our listeners. While you were doing boxing, you were also doing, your acting. And I was gonna ask, like, but you kind of already explained the transition. Um, and I thought it was fascinating looking through your catalog, Phantom Punch, and there was also that other movie that our film that you mentioned earlier that you were working on. Those involve, don't they also involve a little bit of boxing? And you were in those. Was that just a coincidence, or were you able to, through what you did as a boxer, land those roles?
That's exactly how the first one was in '97. It was the Rocky Marciano story. Um, for those who don't know, Rocky Marciano was a former heavyweight champion, but more importantly, he is a notable champion because he has a record that still stands today, where his professional record was 49 fights, 49 wins, with 43 knockouts. He didn't lose as a professional, and he retired with his belt. Now people say, well, Floyd Mayweather surpassed him. Yeah, no. See, the difference between Floyd Mayweather and Rocky Marciano is that Rocky Marciano did not have any controversial fights. All his wins were his wins. He won those fights. He stopped greats and whatnot. Mayweather has a couple of, like, three controversial fights. Truth be told, even though I'm a fan of Mayweather, I know for a fact that he should have three losses. And the ironic thing was that in that movie, the story goes that Rocky Marciano had 4 amateur fights, and he lost all 4. And then he said to himself, if I'm going to lose fights, I might as well get paid for it. So he turned professional. And they ended up winning 49 in a row. Now, I was his first amateur fight. My name was Henry Lester. All right. Fast forward some 9 years, I am then doing Phantom Punch, another boxing movie. And in essence, when these boxing movies come to town, what they do is they make a call out to all the boxing gyms, and they ask for, they're looking for different characters that look like X, Y, and Z. So they asked for a big black man. Well, I was the biggest blackest guy going, so I got the nod on that, and I got the nod again on the Phantom Punch. And it just so happened that in the Phantom Punch, which was the Sonny Liston story, Sonny Liston was in prison when he started boxing, Missouri State Penitentiary. And the story has it that he goes up and he ends up knocking this one guy out. And the chaplain saw him knock the guy out. So he runs down and just starts giving him a pep talk, telling him how you did an amazing thing there, but in essence, you have a gift. Use it in a means that you could be rewarded as opposed to getting in trouble. He just punched out a guy, and the prison guard was just off to the side. You could have seen it, and then he'd have had problems. Whereas in the States, in the penitentiaries, they have an actual amateur boxing scenario. But if you were to knock him out in the ring, it'd be a completely different story. You'd be celebrated. Now he goes, yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to be good. He goes, well, you just fought the Missouri State champion, and he just knocked out the Missouri State champion. That was me. That was my character. And my character, his name was Big Lester. Henry Lester was in in Rocky Marciano's story. Big Lester in Phantom Punch. So, all right. Yeah.
How did those films, one of your most notable films, is Resident Evil. And you've probably talked about that film a lot already. And I want to kind of hear about working on this film series. I know there was another gentleman who was also playing a similar role to you. He was playing another Axeman, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm. So it was you and him. Um, can you tell our listeners, what it was like working on this film and, sharing the screen with so many other, well-known actors? Yeah.
It was career defining. I really enjoyed it. I had the first time in Resident Evil 4 Afterlife. Um, that was surreal. Uh, Working with the actors and whatnot. In that scenario, it was just me, and I had never been in a studio, like one of these studios before. They're absolutely humongous, like positively, like it's like 4 or 5 city blocks. Yeah, 4 or 5 city blocks. Um, I Who was it? I forgot the actor's name, but he played not Clay. He was one of the, oh God, what was his name? Even his act. He There was a show called Sons of Anarchy, and he was I can't remember his name. He was in that one of the guys from Sons of Anarchy that was in Resident Evil, and he walked what would be like 3 city blocks over just to meet me because I was a Canadian heavyweight champion at the time, the professional heavyweight champ. And he walked over to me and goes, "I hear you're the Canadian champ." I said, "Yes." He goes, "Pleasure to meet you." I'm like, "It's a pleasure to meet me." Thank you. Yeah. So no, it was absolutely surreal. And then the second time we did Resident Evil Retribution, that was incredible. And that's the one with my what you call it? we dubbed me original Axeman, and he was Uber Axeman. So that was Kevin Shan.
How are your skills from? How would you say your skills from boxing helped you in the filming of these scenes?
Well, in those scenes, not as much because my objective was to chop people in half. See, as far as I was concerned, the Axeman was misunderstood. See, he was just looking for a little connection and tenderness, and everybody wanted to run away from him, so he had to chop you in half so you didn't. If they were to actually be a little more friendly to him, they wouldn't have been killed. I suspect.
Yeah, it was that role though. That role was amazing. Like, how heavy was that axe?
Well, there's a scene in Afterlife where I get to the prison gates, and in essence, I'm the king of the zombies, and I'm swinging the axe for like 2 minutes straight, and then I knock down this fence, and then the zombies swarm in. Now, those 3 axes, one was 90 pounds, one was 70, and one was 50. The 90 pounder was the one I'm swinging for 2 minutes because it was dense. But wow, that was a workout.
I bet. From Resident Evil, you were in a lot of other more serious films, but one that I watched recently that your nephew showed me, Pixels. Yes, a more comedic production. In one scene, this was a scene that you were in. Josh Gad is yelling at the seals. In this scene, you were in the front row, and he walked up to you and he was talking to you. And I was wondering, involving this scene, how difficult was it for you and even all the other seals to keep a straight and serious face throughout this scene?
Oh, it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. First and foremost, that scene took 8 hours to film. And Josh Gad is arguably actually the whole crew are the most talented human beings I've ever worked with. And it's unfortunate that they're underrated because you don't get to see their brilliance. They are. Josh was improvising. If you remember the scene, the president goes off and says that we are going to have these two arcaders speak to you for 120 minutes starting now. And Adam Sandler is walking with Josh and says, okay, you can do this. Josh said, I can't do this. I'm so scared. I'm so scared. He goes, no, you can do this. My name is Brenner, and this is your worst nightmare. Okay. From that point on, it was all improvisation. He made it up, and he kept changing it up for 8 hours. He was incredible. We were blowing snot bubbles, laughing so hard. Like each and every one of us. It was the Christopher Columbus, the director, was getting a little irate because he couldn't get a clean shot on us. Like we weren't. I don't know when they got that scene, that footage of me with a straight face, because I don't remember having a straight face ever with him.
That must have been really, really hard for you to be able to be in that position of trying to stay serious while Josh was bouncing off these statements to you. And after that scene, you later on you guys also did that battle. Yeah, were you the one who was eaten by the centipede? Was that your character?
Yes. Yeah, I'm Sergeant Duff.
Sergeant Duff. How did they film that scene with it coming down?
There was some 300-foot crane, and not just that, like I walked in onto the field and like, yeah, see that crane? It's going to be throwing you around. Now, that was justification for me to go home. Only to find out that they're just pulling my leg because there was a second crane that they hadn't built yet. That was only maybe 12 feet in the air. And like, okay, that's a little better.
In that overall production of that film, was there anything that you might have learned? Because I know this film was a very, comedic film, so I don't believe it involved a lot of work, as in maybe your other films did. But was there any advice or information or knowledge that was passed on to you through the production of this film? Because you mentioned earlier you worked with a lot of very, very creative people.
I saw at least how far I still needed to go when it came to improvisation. These guys were amazing, like absolutely amazing. Josh Gad is just like literally not even the next level, but the next level comedian. It was a great scenario. They made us feel super comfortable. The four of us, none of us were anywhere remotely close to that level yet, so it was great.
That's really great to hear. That the things you learned from Pixels. This is one question that I'm still trying to figure out what played out. Suicide Squad. You know Suicide Squad. You were involved. You were supposed to be involved in this project. I was doing some research, and I know your nephew. If you don't know, your nephew was in a DC TV show as a background actor, and he was in Titans, I believe. I think that's what it was called. But for you, Suicide Squad, you were gonna be the Shark King, I believe, maybe whatever his name, King Shark. CGI, the motion capture. What happened with this project? This was referring to the first Suicide Squad. James Gunn did a second one with the actual. But can you explain your involvement in this film?
Okay, so first and foremost, I was never going to be King Shark. It was just got out there in the media, in the internet world, that I was King Shark. King Shark was not in the script, and I was asking the stunt coordinator who called me up for the gig. I was like, "What is this about?" I have no idea. It's not in the script. So, who I actually ended up being there was a guy, Diablo, Fire Hands. Diablo Firehands, his character is um, he's remorseful because what happens is when he gets really emotional, really angry, that's when he turns into this ball of fire, fire hands thing. And I think he hurt some people and he was really remorseful, did not want to go back to that state. And then Will Smith, okay, so there's this the common foe, um, Incubus is coming along and he's destroying all these, he's destroying everybody. So Will Smith talks to him and he's like, come on, you gotta do this. You gotta use your powers. You gotta become fire hands. This, that, and next thing. And he goes and tries to fight Incubus. Incubus kicks him. He goes sailing into a barbershop through the window and whatnot. And then he's upset. And he turns into Mega Diablo. And this part is all CG'd. I'm Mega Diablo.
My word. And that must have been a fun project being part, even if it was just a small role, being a part of a DC film. You could say that in some ways.
It was actually a big role, a much bigger role than most people thought. Like we were there for at least, I think, 6 days.
And that kind of leads to kind of a subject I wanted to talk about that's a little bit different than acting, but in some ways it's, stunt work. You've done a few films. Wasn't one XXX, wasn't that one that you were part of, or that was under IMDb? What exactly does, because I haven't spoken to anybody who's been involved in stunt work, so I don't know the ins and outs of what that looks like. But what's it look like? What's stunt work look like?
Stunt work is amazing. It's an opportunity to never grow up. That's it. That's all. You, as children, want to be a superhero. You fly through the air. You jump. You fall down. You roll. You, whatever the case may be. That's what stunt work is. Some actors are very delicate, and they don't want to do things. Then the stuntmen come in.
What does your stunt work look like from the movies that you've been involved in?
For the most part, for me, I'm a big guy, so I'm usually getting either beaten up by women or beaten up by Poindexter little guys and making them look so much better. I'm fine with that.
Well, I mean, nothing wrong with that.
No,
and it's
no,
really interesting to hear what that looks like being in that position. I've seen it before. I've seen people be involved with it, and you're being thrown around. It looks really fun. Does it take a lot of takes? That's one question. Does it take a lot of takes?
It can.
Okay.
Yeah, it can. It was there was this one scene in Resident Evil Retribution, where Kevin, the other Axeman, and I are chasing after 2 ladies. They were chasing after them. They run. One runs on top of the car, and either Kevin and I swing an axe on top of the car and gets stuck. The other one jumps onto the side of onto the hood of the car, and the second Axeman throws an axe at it, chops it into the windshield. And then the 2 Axemen lift the car up, and the girls are standing there and they see the underbelly of the car. And they shoot at the gas tank and the car blows up, killing both Axemen. I'm still here, so I wasn't actually killed. This apparently needed to be said.
You've been a part of a lot of projects. You've done boxing. You've been successful through that. And I wanted to kind of wrap up the interview by before I ask the question I ask all my guests. But out of all the projects you've been a part of, which one would you say is your favorite and why?
I think it would be Transporter. Transporter still to date is my biggest acting role. It was it's a TV series, and I had a supporting role in that. It was incredible. It was great to be able to show the multiple the multiple characteristics of a person throughout. Like we were filming for 9 days. Yeah, I got yeah, I got to really sink my teeth into that bad boy.
My word. It's really good that you were given that opportunity. And even if it wasn't a movie, it was a TV show, and you're able to have that role. And as I mentioned, the question I ask all my guests, what is something that you want to pass on to any of the listeners listening right now that they can apply to their everyday life?
As cliche as it may sound, follow your dreams. As when I left high school, I wanted to be a medical doctor. I started my education and then realized that the sports medical doctor wasn't actually what I wanted to be. It wasn't it. Now I make a living out of being a big kid. I play make believe. I run around and play sports, and that's it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today to share your experience, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed hearing your life and how you experienced everything from film to sports. But I'll be sure to leave in this description where you can find Ray and everything that he does. But thank you guys so much for listening. Knock 'em, knock 'em.